Some songs don't just play, they stay with you. They find you at 2 in the morning. They remind you of someone you loved or someone you lost. The 1990s gave reggae something rare, ballads so deep, so honest.
Just like a rose.
They felt like confessions, not just love songs, truth songs. But here's what most people don't know. Some of the voices behind these songs were fighting battles the world never saw, pain behind the harmony, struggle behind the melody. Tonight we go back.
I'm feeling fine, and I hope you're fine.
Back to the decade that changed reggae forever. 10 ballads, 10 stories, and at least one on this list. You thought you knew, you didn't. Stay with us. Number 10, Richie Stephens, Warm and Tender Love.
I don't really know them anymore. Those awful days, no.
Close your eyes for a second. Picture a small room somewhere in Kingston, a fan turning slow overhead, a man singing like nobody else is in the house. That's what this song feels like.
No more, 'cause I've got someone in my life now that I know worth living.
Richie Stephens had a voice that made you feel every single word. He wasn't performing, he wasn't putting on a show, he was talking directly to you. And when that voice hit a certain note, man, it just went right through you.
No, they don't really stress me anymore, 'cause you rescued me, my baby.
Richie Stephens came out of Spanish Town, Jamaica, and by the early 1990s, he had already built a quiet reputation as one of the most dependable ballad singers in the reggae world.
Open up so wide, close my eyes and I can feel.
Warm and Tender Love was everything that lovers rock fans were hungry for. It wasn't about flashy production or big dance hall beats. It was stripped back, just voice, melody, and real emotion.
Teardrops, I don't have to cry them anymore. Those restless.
The song moved through UK reggae sound systems and Caribbean radio stations where people who valued deep singing over hype were paying very close attention.
Rainbow with all the colors of this world. And if the sun doesn't shine tomorrow.
Richie had a gift for singing about the love that lasts, not the exciting new kind, the settled, deep, don't want to lose it kind. Here's something that not many people talk about. While Richie Stephens was recording his own music, he was also writing and producing for other artists at the same time.
Rescue me, my baby, with the strength of your love.
The man was working on multiple fronts. He had that kind of musical brain where he could give to others and still save his best work for himself. And yet, Warm and Tender Love sounds like he poured absolutely everything into one single take.
It's like a rainbow with all the colors of this world. And if the.
That's just the kind of focused artist he was. Richie never got the big mainstream crossover that some of his peers achieved. Part of the reason was distribution. His music reached the right people, the people who truly loved deep reggae.
Those awful days, no, they don't really stress me anymore.
But it didn't always reach the wider audience it deserved. His style was so pure, so rooted in the tradition, that it didn't easily bend toward pop radio. And in the mid-90s, when dancehall started dominating everything,
those lonely teardrops, I don't have to cry them anymore.
ballads like this one quietly slipped into the background. But in households across Jamaica, the UK, and the Caribbean, this song was on repeat. It just never got the headline it earned.
Those lonely teardrops, I don't have to cry them anymore.
Hold on to that warmth, because number 9 brings us a true veteran, a man who carried roots music on his back and never once let it fall. Number 9, Dennis Brown, How Could I Leave? You have to understand something about Dennis Brown before we go any further. Bob Marley himself called Dennis Brown his favorite singer, his favorite. Not just in reggae, his favorite singer, full stop. So when Dennis Brown recorded a ballad, it was not a light thing, it was a moment. How Could I Leave carries that weight. Every word feels like it costs something, like he is reaching into a place most singers never find. By 1991, Dennis Brown had already been recording for over 2 decades. He started as a child at Studio One in the late 1960s and never stopped. But the early 90s found him working through an incredibly difficult personal period in his life, and that pain found its way into his music. How Could I Leave is a song about longing and loyalty.
Promise you won't leave me.
About being pulled between where you are and where your heart belongs. The production is gentle, letting his voice lead the way. Dennis never needed big arrangements. The voice was the arrangement. The track circulated through sound system culture and reggae radio, earning deep respect from fans who knew real singing when they heard it. Dennis Brown recorded so many songs throughout his career that even some of his closest fans have not heard everything in his catalog. Some of his early 90s recordings were done quickly, almost casually, and yet they came out sounding like masterpieces. There are stories from people in the studio who said Dennis would close his eyes, find the melody in his head, and deliver a vocal that left everyone in the room speechless. No second takes needed. That was just his gift. Dennis Brown passed away in 1999 at just 42 years old. And when an artist dies, sometimes their later work gets buried under the celebration of their earlier classics. People go back to Money in My Pocket and the Studio One days, and those records deserve every bit of love they get. But his 90s work, some of it quietly profound, often gets overlooked. How Could I Leave deserves to sit alongside the best of what Dennis Brown ever recorded. We are just getting started. Number 8 takes us somewhere different, a song that crossed 2 worlds and made both of them pay attention. Number 8, Maxi Priest featuring Shabba Ranks, House Call.
Ain't no use pretending you don't feel the way I do.
Check it.
Now this is where things get interesting, because this track is not just a ballad, it's a conversation. Maxi Priest brings the smooth, that silky, slow burn reggae soul that he was already becoming famous for. And then Shabba Ranks walks in with that deep dance hall rumble, and suddenly the whole song has another dimension. Picture a London blues dance, late on a Saturday night, the sound system turned down just enough for people to feel the bass in their chest without losing the words. That was the power of this record. House Call came from Maxi Priest's bona fide album released in 1990 and 1991 on 10 records through Virgin. The album was already doing serious business when this track started catching fire. And Maxi had a rare ability to move between reggae and mainstream pop without losing either audience, and House Call showed that gift at its clearest. Shabba Ranks at that point was the hottest voice in dancehall. He would go on to win 2 Grammy Awards back-to-back in 1992 and 1993. The combination of Maxi's smooth vocals and Shabba's raw charisma made this track feel like a proper event. The pairing almost didn't happen. getting two artists from such different lanes in reggae music, one based in London, one a dancehall king from Jamaica, to share a track was not the obvious call at the time, but the chemistry was undeniable from the first moment they were in the same room. The contrast was exactly what made the song work, and the UK market absolutely ran with it. The radio stations that usually kept reggae at arm's length had no choice but to play it. In some ways, this track became a victim of its own crossover success. The reggae community sometimes pushed it aside as too commercial. The mainstream pop world filed it under reggae and moved on, so it fell into a kind of gap where neither side fully claimed it.
Back now, every little touch it means so much. Girl, just let me
But for anyone who was there, for anyone who heard it when it first dropped, this was a moment. A genuine crossover done right, with real artistry on both sides.
You're feeling shy, it's too late to turn back now. Every little touch.
That was two worlds meeting in one song. Number 7 goes deeper, and this one stayed close to home in Jamaica in a way that made it hurt even more. Number 7, Sanchez, Never Diss the Man. Some songs are about romance, and then some songs are about something older and deeper than romance. Never Diss the Man sits in that second category. This is a devotional track. It carries the weight of faith, of loyalty, of knowing that no matter what happens in life, there is something greater holding you steady. Sanchez delivers it the way a preacher delivers a sermon, with total conviction, no holding back, no performance, just truth. And truth like that, in reggae, lands differently than anything else. Sanchez, born Kevin Jackson in Kingston in 1966, became one of the most consistent voices in 90s reggae. He was known across the Caribbean and UK as the man you called when you needed a ballad done right. Never Diss the Man is a song that works on more than one level. On the surface, it's about love and loyalty, but look closer and the spiritual undertones are very clear. In a decade when Jamaican music was going through enormous change, roots giving way to dancehall, digital rhythms replacing live bands, Sanchez held firm to the ballad tradition. This track is proof of that commitment. Sanchez had a reputation in the studio for being almost impossibly versatile. He could record a roots track, then a lover's rock piece, then a devotional song in the same session and make each one sound completely authentic. Some producers who worked with him in the early 90s said that his ability to switch emotional gears without losing sincerity was something they had never seen before or since. Never Diss the Man is the product of that rare gift. The problem with being the reliable ballad specialist in reggae is that you can get taken for granted. Sanchez delivered so consistently that his work sometimes blurred together in people's memory. Listeners remembered the feeling of his songs but couldn't always name which one was which. And without a massive chart crossover moment, like some of his peers, he never became a household name outside of reggae circles. That is a genuine shame. Because track by track, his 90s catalog stands up to anyone. Number 6 brings a voice that rose out of grief and turned it into one of the decade's most spiritual recordings. Number 6, Luciano, It's Me Again, Jah.
Glory be to the Most High God.
Not every ballad is about romantic love. Some are prayers, and It's Me Again, Jah is one of the most honest prayers ever put to a reggae rhythm. Luciano sounds like a man standing in an open field, face turned upward, speaking directly to God. No filters, no clever wordplay. Just a raw, vulnerable request. Here I am again. That kind of spiritual openness in a song can feel uncomfortable for some listeners, but for those who have ever felt completely alone and reached upward in desperation, this song is like someone understanding you perfectly. Luciano's 1995 album Where There Is Life was produced by the legendary Philip Fatis Burrell on the Exterminator label, distributed through VP Records.
It's me again, as I fall on my knees.
Fatis Burrell had a remarkable ear for spiritual roots music, and Luciano was his greatest canvas. And the album came out just months after the sudden death of Garnett Silk, which you will hear about very soon on this list.
It's me again, as I fall on.
And many listeners heard it as reggae music's direct response to that loss. Luciano stepped into a space that felt empty and filled it with something real. It's Me Again, Yah was the centerpiece of that spiritual mission. Luciano was still in his early 20s when he recorded this album.
It's me again, as I fall.
Think about that for a moment. The depth of emotion, the maturity of the faith being expressed, the control of that voice, all of it coming from a man barely out of his teenage years. Philip Fatis Burrell later said that working with Luciano in that period felt like something beyond normal music. It felt like something was being channeled through the young singer that was bigger than any of them in that studio.
It's me again, as I fall on my knees.
Nut Luciano became extremely popular in roots reggae circles, but struggled to break through in mainstream markets. The deeply spiritual content of his music, which is exactly what makes it extraordinary, was also what kept it from wider pop radio play.
Ooh, yeah. Bless my soul, oh Jah.
In a decade being driven increasingly by dancehall energy and crossover ambitions, a young man singing directly to God with that much sincerity was not what commercial radio was shopping for. His legacy was built one devoted listener at a time, and that loyalty never faded. That song touched something deep. Number 5 is where things get complicated, and we promised you earlier that one entry on this list was not what it seemed. We are getting close. Number 5, Beres Hammond, Can't Stop a Man. By 1994, Beres Hammond had already been the voice of Jamaican romantic music for over a decade, but this song is not just about love. It's about resilience, about a man who has been knocked down, pushed aside, underestimated, and who refuses to stay down. You feel it in the way he sings it. There is something almost defiant in his tenderness, like he is proving something with every note, and the rhythm underneath him, warm, unhurried, deep. Gives him all the space he needs to say everything he has to say. Beres Hammond in the mid-90s was in one of the most productive periods of his career. He had fought hard battles with record labels earlier in his life and had learned how to protect his artistry. By this point, he was operating with more independence, and that freedom showed in his recordings. Can't Stop a Man carries a personal energy that goes beyond typical lover's rock. The lyrics speak to determination and inner strength. Beres was not just singing about romantic relationships, he was singing about survival, about character, about the kind of man you choose to be when life gives you reasons to give up. Beres Hammond is famously protective of his creative process. He does not rush. He does not record songs he doesn't believe in. Producers who worked with him in the 90s said that he would reject a rhythm simply because the feeling wasn't right. Not because the music wasn't technically good, but because it didn't match what he was trying to say. That level of artistic standards is rare. And it is exactly why every song he put out in this era has that unmistakable quality that other artists couldn't replicate. Beres Hammond has so many classic tracks in his catalog that even his very good songs sometimes get buried. Fans go straight to the obvious favorites and the deeper cuts get left behind. Can't Stop a Man deserved far more attention than it received outside of Jamaica and the Caribbean. In a fair world, this song would be recognized as one of the finest expressions of masculine resilience in 90s music, not just in reggae, in any genre. Beres reminded you what strength sounds like. Now at number 4, we promised you a story. Something behind one of the most famous reggae crossover songs of the decade. Here it is. Number 4, Maxi Priest, Close to You. This song is sunlight. It is a Saturday morning with nowhere to be. It is the feeling of having everything you need right beside you. Maxi Priest took a song that had already been a classic. The Carpenters made it famous in 1970.
No escaping me. I just wanna be close to you.
And he turned it into something warm, something reggae, something that felt like it was always meant to be sung the way he sang it. And when it hit number 1 in America in the summer of 1990, something shifted in the music world.
You're just like a dream. Love is
People who had never given reggae a second listen suddenly had to pay attention. Close to You was written by Burt Bacharach and Hal David, two of the most respected songwriters in American music history. The Carpenters took it to the top of the charts in 1970.
You make my dreams come true. I just wanna be close.
20 years later, Maxi Priest, a black British man of Jamaican heritage, he born Max Alfred Elliott in Lewisham, London, and took it back to that same number 1 position. His version reached the top of the U.S. Billboard Hot 100.
When you turn, girl, you don't know how it makes me.
In September of 1990, making him one of the very few reggae artists to ever achieve that milestone. The song was on 10 records through Virgin, and the label pushed it hard, but the song did most of the work itself.
Something deep inside of me.
Now, we told you at the start of this video that one song on this list was not what it seemed. This is that story. When Close to You hit number 1, not everyone was celebrating. In certain corners of the reggae world, particularly among roots purists, there was a very different reaction.
I just can't believe it's real.
The conversation went something like this. Had Maxi Priest sold out? Some people said yes. In interviews and in the press of the time, voices within the reggae community questioned whether covering a pop classic, softening the sound, and crossing over to mainstream radio was a betrayal of the music.
I just can't believe it's real. I can't believe it's real.
There were different versions of the story, depending on who you asked. Some fans felt that reggae's raw power, its rebel spirit, its connection to struggle and resistance was being smoothed away to make it palatable for an audience that didn't care about those roots.
I'm young with elastic words. I'm on a countdown till I get hurt. A blood was.
But here's the other side of that story. Maxi Priest was born in London. He grew up navigating 2 cultures. His relationship with reggae music was real, but his musical world was always wider than one lane.
Fatal attraction is where I'm at. There's no escaping me.
And there is a strong argument, one that many historians of Black British music now make, that what Maxi did with Close to You was not a sellout. It was a statement. Which it said reggae music belongs everywhere. It can carry any song. It can speak to any audience. There's also the industry side to consider. At the time, Black British artists faced very real barriers in mainstream music. Label politics, radio gatekeeping.
Come true. You make my dreams come true. I just want.
And cultural bias meant that artists had to be strategic just to be heard. Some people say the pressure to soften the sound came from the label, not from Maxi himself. Others say he made those choices willingly and proudly. The full truth, as always, lives somewhere in the middle. What we know for certain is this, that #1 record opened doors.
When you touch, girl, you don't know how it made.
After Maxi hit the top of the US charts, British reggae and reggae-influenced artists started getting more serious consideration from major labels and mainstream radio. His success had a ripple effect that benefited artists who came after him. Whether you see Close to You as a compromise or a conquest depends on where you're standing, but you cannot deny what it achieved. Number 3, Garnett Silk, Hello Mama Africa.
Hello Mama Africa. Oh, oh.
Some voices feel ancient, like they carry memory that goes further back than one lifetime. Garnett Silk had a voice like that. When he sang, it felt like the music was coming from somewhere very deep and very old. Hello Mama Africa is not just a song about a continent. It is a song about belonging, about finding your home in something larger than yourself, about the connection between the African diaspora and the homeland that was taken from them. And Garnett sings it with a tenderness that is almost unbearable in its sincerity.
These words to let you know.
By 1993, Garnett Silk was already being talked about as the future of roots reggae. He was working with some of the most respected producers in Jamaica, and his music had a spiritual weight that was immediately recognizable. Hello Mama Africa came during a period when roots music was fighting for space against the rising tide of dancehall.
Very thought of you.
Garnett's answer to that commercial pressure was simply to go deeper, to make his music more honest, more personal, more connected to Rastafarian philosophy and African consciousness. The song was embraced by the roots community with total devotion.
My Africa, how are you? Open you.
People who worked with Garnett Silk in the studio often talked about how seriously he took his faith. He studied deeply, he spoke carefully, and that thoughtfulness came through in every line he wrote.
Hello, Mama Africa, how are you?
Hello Mama Africa is full of lyrical choices that only come from someone who has spent real time with the ideas they are expressing. This wasn't just good songwriting. It was the product of a man trying to live what he believed. Garnett Silk died on December 9th, 1994. In a tragic house fire in Mandeville. He was only 28 years old. When an artist dies that young, their catalog often gets frozen in a particular moment.
Mama Africa, how are you? The wind that
Early work gets
blows
celebrated in the
around,
deeper cuts.
the fragmented
Show where
nation.
the artistry was heading. Get less attention. Hello Mama Africa deserves to be heard as part of a complete artistic vision that was only just beginning to fully emerge when it was lost.
Don't you worry now, I won't be long.
Garnett left us too soon, but what he left behind lasts forever. Number 2, and this one carries a weight that goes far beyond the music. It changed the man who made it. Number 2, Buju Banton, Untold Stories.
I will pray, only him know how we get through every day.
This song hurts in the best possible way. It is the sound of a man standing in the middle of a hard life and refusing to look away from any of it. Poverty, hunger, injustice, the weight of being black and poor in a world that has no space for you.
For the people who are suffering bad, another toll to the poor mega.
Buju Banton sings Untold Stories like he is reporting from inside the pain, not describing it from a safe distance, but living inside it with you, and somehow through all of that heaviness.
To stop the youth from get out of control, full of our education, yet no owner.
There is a kind of grace, a kind of faith, like the music itself is refusing to give up. Untold Stories came from Buju Banton's landmark album Till Shiloh, released in 1995 on Loose Cannon through Island Records. The album was produced largely by Bobby Digital.
Stay, opportunity, a scarce commodity.
One of the most talented producers in 90s reggae, with additional production from Buju himself, it marked a dramatic shift in direction for the artist from the hard-edged dancehall performer he had been in the early 90s
Unity, a scarce commodity. In this time
to a full-blooded roots artist drawing on Rastafarian philosophy, biblical language, and a deeply personal faith. Critics recognize the album immediately as something special. It has since been placed consistently on lists of the greatest reggae albums ever made.
The fool has never been told. To this life, he gets me down.
Buju recorded Till Shiloh during one of the most turbulent periods of his public life, yet the album is extraordinarily calm and focused. There is not a wasted word in Untold Stories.
I'm living while I'm living, to the Father I will pray.
Every image, every line is deliberate. The people who were in the studio during those sessions described a young man who had clearly done a great deal of thinking and a great deal of living before he sat down to make this record.
About those who can, here we'll have to stay. Opportunity has.
The depth you hear in the final product was earned, not invented. Untold Stories and the Till Shiloh album are actually well known within reggae circles. So this entry is less about being forgotten and more about being underrated in the wider world of music history.
Stop the youth and get out of control. Full up of education, yet no owner.
Outside of the reggae community, this album is rarely mentioned in the same breath as other classic records of the mid-90s. And that is a real gap in how music history has been told. This belongs in the conversation.
Go on and on, the fool has never been told. I'm living while I'm living.
Buju told the truth on that record, and the world needed to hear it. Number 1 now. The song that, after everything you've heard tonight, still stands above them all. Number 1, Beres Hammond, Putting Up Resistance. If you have ever loved someone and tried not to, this is your song. If you have ever been completely certain that getting close to someone was a bad idea and then gotten close to them anyway, you know exactly what Beres Hammond is singing about.
With every sign there's no way out. Breaking our back to make it up, candle.
Putting Up Resistance is the moment before surrender. The sweet, impossible, fully human moment when you know the fight is already over and you haven't admitted it yet. Beres sings it with a smile in his voice and an ache in his heart at the same time. It is one of the most perfectly balanced, emotional performances in the history of reggae music. By 1990, Beres Hammond had been recording for over a decade. He had released beautiful music before this, but Putting Up Resistance felt like everything he had learned about singing. about life and about love arriving in one place at one time. The production is warm and unhurried.
Hey! No one ever will understand it.
The rhythm gives him room to breathe, to pause, to let a note linger just a moment longer than you expect. The lyrics are smart. They use the language of argument and resistance to describe the experience of falling in love. And Beres delivers every line like he is living it in real time. The song moved across the Caribbean, through the UK reggae scene, and into living rooms across the world. Beres Hammond is known for taking his time with music. He has turned down rhythms, rejected sessions, and walked away from deals that didn't feel right. But people close to him have said that putting up resistance came together in a way that felt effortless, like the song was already complete somewhere and he was just discovering it. Sometimes the best art arrives like that. You stop trying and it finds you. 30+ years later, this track still sounds as fresh as the day it was recorded. This song is not forgotten by reggae fans. Ask anyone who grew up loving this music and they will know every word. But in the larger story of 90s popular music, it rarely gets mentioned. No one puts it in the documentaries about the decade. No one includes it on the mainstream greatest hits lists. And that tells you something important about how reggae music has been treated by the broader music industry and by music journalism. This song is as good as anything made in any genre in the 1990s. Full stop. That is your number one. And if you didn't already have Beres Hammond in your playlist, fix that tonight.